Life of Yuno Gasai, Future Diary. Yuno Gasai is the main protagonist of the Future Diary series. She is the second in the survival game, and she is the owner of the Yukiteru Diary, or the Diary of Future Love. She is obsessed with Yukiteru Amano, the main male protagonist of the story, and her love interest. Welcome to the Amagi! In today's video, we're going over the life of Yuno Gasai. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Background. Yuno was adopted from an orphanage at a young age. Her umbilical cord was left to her as a present from her original parents, but was kept at the orphanage. Yuno's life was a happy one for several years until the strain of money began to emotionally and psychologically affect her parents. Yuno's father stayed away at work until the late hours and barely interacted with his family. Yuno's mother began to abuse her, wanting her to become the perfect citizen, eventually locking her in a cage and timing everything she did, from sleeping to eating. Yuno's mother went to the extreme, leaving Yuno to starve and at times force-feeding her inedible materials, although it is implied in the anime that Yuno did this to herself to survive. While Yuno's father objected to his wife's severe treatment of Yuno, he did little to nothing to stop her. In the anime, Yuno's mother was ill and believed she was a terrible wife and mother, and believed punishing Yuno was her only way to earn happiness. Eventually, Yuno snapped and managed to imprison her parents in the cage as punishment. However, she neglected to check in on her parents, and they starved to death. Not removing the corpses from her house, Yuno began to act like they were still alive and talk to them. Her home's electricity cut off due to unpaid bills. Now, with nothing left to live for, Yuno fell into despair, to the point that she was put in detention at school to write up her dreams for the future. Not having any dreams, Yuno turned to the only other person in the classroom, Yukiteru. Asking him what his dreams were, Yuno learned Yukiteru wished to go stargazing with his parents, who had recently divorced. His dreams seemingly ruined, Yuno suggested seeing the stars with him. While Yukiteru objected to going with her instead of his family, Yuno proposed becoming his bride. Believing Yuno to be joking, Yukiteru agreed, but only when the pair grew up. However, in Yuno's view, she believed Yukiteru was serious, and her whole life became focused on him. Observing him from afar, Yuno stalked Yukiteru. A week after their meeting, Yuno learned Yukiteru had a love letter, planning to give it to a fellow student, Moe Wakaba. Realizing her chances to be with Yukiteru were in jeopardy, Yuno dressed herself up in a pink rabbit costume to stop Yukiteru from giving Moe the letter. Her attempt ultimately failed, but Moe kindly rejected Yukiteru's feelings towards her. Relieved, she kept stalking him. The survival game. At the beginning of the manga, Yuno is introduced as the ideal student, with good grades and popularity. Already having her diary, Yuno kept an eye on Yukiteru until April 23rd, when Deus activated the survival game. On April 24th, Yuno realizes Yukiteru has gained his future diary and creates a clay model of Muru on her desk as a clue to Yukiteru that both of them are future diary owners and that Deus is not imaginary. She then approaches him after school. Yukiteru runs off in terror, much to Yuno's surprise, until he flees into an elevator of a building. Yuno catches up and joins him in the elevator to save him from the third. Yukiteru tries to pull out a throwing dart to defend himself, only for Yuno to kiss him full on the mouth, stopping him. Yuno explains the survival game, how she and Third are diary owners, and reveals that her phone focuses entirely on Yukiteru's actions. She averts Yukiteru's future by sending the elevator to the top floor instead of the 14th, where Third would have killed him had she not intervened. On the roof, Yuno swiftly formulates a plan and instructs Yukiteru to destroy Third's diary using his throwing darts. They hide when Third appears on the roof. Yuno catches Third off guard when she runs out in front of him, allowing Yukiteru to throw a dart and pierce Third's phone, erasing him from existence. Later, Yuno, Yukiteru, and the other diary owners are gathered by Deus, who explains the rules of the game. Afterward, Yukiteru finds himself alone in the Cathedral of Casualty, Yuno appearing behind him, and vows to protect him no matter what, terrifying Yukiteru with her adoring look of joy. Attack of the 9th. After sending 40 text messages to Yukiteru, Yuno is thrilled to be in his company again. The next day, Yukiteru approaches Yuno to ask for help in the game, although she departs to a PE class with the promise to talk to him later. However, Minene Uryu, the 9th diary owner, arrives to kill Yukiteru. Yuno attacks her with a fire extinguisher and manages to save Yukiteru from the first bomb exploding in the middle school. Yuno promises Yukiteru to protect him. Afraid of dying, Yukiteru plays along with Yuno in order to protect himself, and the two share a kiss. Sneaking through the school, the duo use their diaries to evade most of Minene's bombs, but eventually are lured into a trap and caught in a blast. They survive, but Yukiteru laments over his decision to be a bystander. However, Yuno reveals she has been watching him for a while, and promises him that the other students and staff members are his friends. The two make it to the other side of the school, only for several students, including Oji Kosaka, to ambush Yukiteru and drag him outside to be sacrificed to Minene. Yuno is taken into a classroom where she watches Yukiteru falling into despair. Realizing she lied to him, Yuno vows to protect him. She frees herself from her captors and races out of the school, causing all of the motion sensor bombs to go off until she eventually leaps out a window and tries to launch a surprise attack on Minene. At this point, Kurusu Keigo, the 4th diary owner, has arrived to aid Yukiteru. Yukiteru charges at Minene, Yuno using her Yukiteru diary to help him avoid the landmines between him and Minene. Minene realizes that Yuno is a diary owner as well and kicks Yuno away, leaving Yukiteru to use his common sense to dodge the final mine and wound Minene in the eye with a dart. Minene retreats on a motorbike using her escape diary. Later, Kurusu forms the Future Diary Alliance with Yukiteru and Yuno. Yuno reads her diary, finding the happy end entry on July 28th, predicting that she and Yukiteru will come together as one. Cult of the 6th. Kurusu arranges for Yukiteru and Yuno to visit Sakurami City's amusement park in order to lure out Minene. Yukiteru and Yuno spend the day together. Yukiteru observes how Yuno did have a normal side after all. Yuno tries to go to the planetarium, but Yukiteru deliberately avoids it, choosing to go on the nearby Ferris wheel instead. Yuno confronts Yukiteru about his odd behavior, reminding him of their past encounter and the promise they made to go stargazing together and become a couple, much to Yukiteru's shock, as he realizes that Yuno took his joke seriously. Yuno gives Yukiteru a kiss on the forehead afterward. Yukiteru escorts Yuno to her house, although Yuno invites him inside. The electricity is out, and Yuno disappears into the kitchen to prepare an apple for her and Yukiteru to share. Yukiteru wanders off into the pitch-black house to find the bathroom, but comes across the sealed-off room where the 3 corpses are. Reading the entries in his diary, which only briefly notes the door, Yukiteru decides to experiment and alter the future by looking inside the room. As he opens the door, all of the future diaries are completely rewritten. Yukiteru opens the door and finds the 3 corpses inside, altering the planned-out future of the survival game and nearly destroying Deus's Cathedral of Casualty. Yuno finds Yukiteru, horrified at what has happened, her diary's happy end vanishing. Yukiteru flees her home in terror, running to his own house and locking himself inside, where he collapses by the door to catch his breath and regain his energy. Yuno follows, suddenly looking through the letterbox and wishing Yukiteru a good night. The next day, Kurusu arrives at Yukiteru's house to pick him up, but as Yukiteru tries to tell him about the discoveries of last night, Yuno appears, telling Yukiteru not to give away what happened. Kurusu immediately assumes the two got up to something private and hops into the car, Yuno giving Yukiteru an innocent smile. Yukiteru, still cautious, hops into the passenger seat, but has Yuno staring at him from behind all the way down the highway. Kurusu explains that Minene was captured overnight by the Omakata Temple cult, led by priestess Tsubaki Kasugano, who is said to be able to predict the future through clairvoyance. They agree to meet the priestess in order to obtain and seize Minene. When they arrive at the cult, Yuno watches Yukiteru as he approaches a pond while Kurusu talks to Oren Miyashiro. She catches him when he falls on his back and finally accompanies him when Kurusu calls them. Tsubaki meets them and agrees to an exchange. She would hand over the 9th in exchange for the 1st, since her diaries predicted her dead end that night and he has escaped from the dead end twice. Yuno immediately disagrees, but Yukiteru agrees to the deal and goes with Tsubaki. That night, the cult followers fall into a deep state of hypnosis and become puppets for the 12th diary holder. They begin their attack against their leader, setting her chamber on fire. Armed with an axe, Yuno attacks and kills various followers to protect Yukiteru. But then she notices him running towards Tsubaki to save her. She catches up with him quickly and tells him that he has to either leave Tsubaki behind and join her, or he would die. However, he tells Yuno he wasn't going to leave her behind and hurries to her cage, leaving behind a crying Yuno. Luckily, Kurusu was able to put down the fire by turning on the sprinklers, saving Tsubaki, Yuno, and Yukiteru. However, the cult followers were still under the control of 12th, so Yuno decides to lead Yukiteru and Tsubaki, after he insists on saving her too, towards the exit to leave the place. On the way, however, they are intercepted by the 12th himself, who is disguised among other 4 who look exactly like him. The 5 12ths race towards the trio, but Yuno, remembering the 12th is blind, turns that information in her favor to detect the real 12th and kill him in the spot with a swing of her axe. With the 12th dead, the cult followers regain consciousness, and Tsubaki reveals her true colors as she captures Yukiteru and Yuno. Revealing she planned this all along, Tsubaki kisses Yukiteru in order to taunt Yuno, which immediately provokes her rage. Yuno sets herself free by killing the men who are holding her, and is able to grab her axe and swing it at Tsubaki. She barely saves her diary, but loses one of her hands to Yuno's axe. While she screams in pain, Yuno gives her diary to Yukiteru and pushes him out of the way, letting him escape with his and Yuno's future diaries, which shows Yuno's trust in Yuki. The exhausted Yuno is dragged into the temple where the enraged, now one-handed Tsubaki contemplates what to do with her captive. Acknowledging she has to lure Yukiteru back, Tsubaki sets up a microphone and instructs her male followers to strip Yuno of her clothes and rape her like they did to her, while speaking to Yukiteru over the microphone and speakers to come rescue Yuno before she's molested. Yuno screams that she would rather lose her virginity to Yukiteru than Tsubaki's followers, and after thinking about her while in hiding, he decides he cannot leave her, and he charges into the temple clumsily, throwing a fire axe around. Yukiteru wraps Yuno up in his jacket and confronts Tsubaki, showing his care towards Yuno and ultimately choosing her instead of Tsubaki, then ultimately forced her to damage her clairvoyance diary and eliminate her from the game. Yuno hugs Yukiteru's legs and cries. Later, the two are seen in the back of a police van, Yukiteru confused by why Yuno stalks him as he takes her face in his hand and kisses her. The 5th game. Yukiteru goes to meet his mother, Redial Amano, at the train terminal where she is finally arriving home from work, leaving the house unguarded. Yuno breaks into his house by using a mallet and a roll of shipping tape, preventing the glass from shattering, but breaking it just enough to unlock the door and enter the house. To his horror, Yukiteru discovers that Yuno is broken in and quickly attempts to hide her from his mother. But when he finds her cleaning his room and rearranging all of his books, including his stash of naughty magazines, Redial meets Yuno. Yukiteru is quickly put off when he finds that Redial likes Yuno and supports their relationship, so much that she allows her to stay the night in Yukiteru's room. Yuno quietly reflects to herself that she's glad she didn't have to do anything to Yukiteru's mother, and that her tools would not be useful here. This quickly turns out to not be the case, however, when Redial informs them that she is bringing home a little boy whose parents were both victims of the Omakata cult suicide. This boy turns out to be the 5th, Reisuke Hojo, a future diary owner who wants to kill both first and second. After trying and failing to kill Yuno several times, first attempt was to poison the salad that Yukiteru and Yuno was eating, Reisuke quickly becomes entertained with her and starts to put his cunning skills to work. After Yukiteru discovers that Reisuke is the 5th, he refuses to fight him and tells Yuno to stop fighting him as well, opting instead to try and find out where his diary is so that his mother will not be involved. Yuno ignores him and tries to kill 5th anyway. While Yuno is chasing down 5th, she accidentally hits Redial in the back of the head with a mallet, knocking her out and causing Yuki to become enraged. To make up for it, she promises Yukiteru that they will find 5th's future diary and take it away from him instead, as he had originally planned, but they are unable to find it. Yuno finally realizes that 5th's future diary is being mailed back to them, and Yukiteru gets his hands on the envelope first. But unbeknownst to either Yukiteru or Yuno, Reisuke booby-trapped the envelope with poison gas, which releases into the house instantly and causes Yukiteru to collapse. While Yuno moves Yukiteru to safety, the 5th is able to get away, and his game begins. Reisuke reveals that he has the antidote to Yukiteru's poison in his bag, which he is running around with, provoking Yuno to chase him down. Yuno is able to overcome all of 5th's traps in order to corner him, but is electrocuted when 5th turns on all of the water upstairs and floods the stairwell, then breaks a lamp to send the electric current into the water. At first, Yuno is incapacitated, but Yukiteru saves her life by throwing a dart at 5th, and resuscitating Yuno by breathing into her mouth. Yuno gets back up and fatally stabs the 5th and his future diary. However, after being defeated, Reisuke gives Yuno a warning about her future with Yukiteru. There can only be one survivor, and they will have to eventually try to kill each other. Immediately after 5th dies and disappears, Yuno collapses again, only for both she and Yukiteru to be saved by Ninth. 10th's trap. Yukiteru and Yuno are relocated to a different school after Ninth bombed their old one. Here, Yuki is reunited with his former friend, Kosaka, who slams his name the second he walks in because of the terrorist incident. This is when Hinata and Mao Nonosaka show up, both aiding Yukiteru. After the morning's festivities, Yukiteru is invited to hang out with the group at the scene of a murder. Yukiteru, oblivious to any danger and eager to hang out with his new friends, happily joins along, taking a silent, begrudging Yuno with him. While the four of them have fun, Yuno sits on the sidelines. It is heavily implied that she is thinking about killing Yukiteru's new friends, especially when she traces the word die in the ground with her shoe repeatedly. While the trio are hanging out, Yukiteru's future diary suddenly changes, revealing Hinata's death. Yukiteru rushes to the scene, but it is too late to find Hinata, who has apparently been mauled by a pack of murderous dogs. Aru Akise arrives on the scene and reveals that he has been watching Yukiteru since the beginning, when the group sees the same dogs, who in turn see the group and start getting ready to attack. Yukiteru and his friends run to a nearby building surrounded by glass windows. The dogs attempt to break in, but Yukiteru reveals the truth about his future diary just in time in order to save his friends around to stop the dogs in synchronized order. Mao, who initially appears impressed, suddenly comes around to Yukiteru's side and steals his phone in a nonchalant fashion before holding a knife to his throat as Hinata comes in behind them. After giving a short speech, revealing that she holds 10th's diary, and is actually after the diary that she believes belongs to Akise. Hinata is challenged by Akise to a gamble. If he wins, he gets Yukiteru's diary back, and if he loses, he will give up his own. By using Yukiteru's diary's weakness against Hinata, at Yuno's request, Akise is able to defeat Hinata in the gamble, winning back both Yukiteru and his diary, as well as revealing that he never had a diary. However, when Yukiteru is being released by Mao, Yuno rushes forward, pulls out her knife, and stabs her. Hinata is left alone to take care of Mao while Yukiteru and his friends run away. Not content to leave her unattended and highly upset with the outcome of their situation, Yukiteru turns back around to prove to Hinata that he meant to be her friend, and Yuno follows. However, when they get there, Yuno immediately ran up to hold Hinata at knife point for her diary. This is where Yukiteru declares his relationship with Yuno in an attempt to get her to calm down. Yuno is ecstatic, but Yuki has his reservations. Immediately after this, Karyudo Tsukishima, Hinata's father, gives his final speech to his daughter via the dog's intercom before revealing that the man who had come to kill him was Fourth, Yukiteru's next enemy. Immediately after, Fourth shoots 10 in the back of the head and kills him. The Fourth's betrayal. Instead of working with Yukiteru and Yuno to stop the survival game, and with Ninth to apprehend other players, Kurusu decides to break the alliance with them to kill them and become God himself. He devises a plan in order to kill Yukiteru and Yuno without committing a crime himself, so that he can still use his diary after killing them. Fourth provokes Yuno into committing a crime by playing a game of Russian roulette with Yukiteru during his interrogation process, causing Yuno's diary to change. In response, Yuno knocks out 2 detectives with a fire extinguisher and steals their guns, using them to attempt to kill Fourth before he can pull the trigger on his last round and kill Yukiteru. She succeeds in saving Yukiteru's life but fails to kill Kurusu. After a heated chase, Yukiteru and Yuno escape the police office, but are now wanted fugitives who have attempted to murder a police officer. After spotting Fourth's wife, Naoko Kurusu, whom they had met in a rehearsal wedding ceremony not long before, Yukiteru and Yuno follow her to the hospital, where Uryu Minene is waiting for them. After a few bombs go off, Minene agrees to call a truce between the three, revealing that she is also being hunted down by Kurusu. Minene takes Yukiteru and Yuno to the hospital room that Naoko is headed for, where they find her and Yoi Kurusu, Fourth's son. Here, they discover that Yoi is dying, and that Kurusu wants to become God so that he can reverse time to save his son. Yukiteru, Yuno, and Minene form a new alliance, aiming to take down Kurusu, but all 3 of their future diaries are showing dead-end flags, indicating that Kurusu is coming for them. While trying to escape the hospital, Ninth runs into Masumi Nishijima, Kurusu's second-in-command, and realizes how to defeat Fourth. After Yuno detonates a flashbang grenade in Fourth's face, thinking that it was a real grenade and preparing herself to sacrifice her own life for Yukiteru, all 3 of them are knocked out. Shortly after this, a bomb that Ninth had planted explodes, leaving Yukiteru, Yuno, and Kurusu in a bombed-out shell of a hospital. Yukiteru picks up a gun and aims it at Kurusu, who is using Yuno as a human shield. Yukiteru manages to shoot Kurusu, despite his own diary predicting Yuno's death instead. Not too long after this gunshot, Nishijima shows up with Ninth, who has a taped recording of Kurusu's voice, explaining how he has been breaking the law. This revelation allows Yukiteru and Yuno to escape, their criminal records wiped clean as well. Before breaking his own diary, Fourth asks Ninth to take care of his son. Ninth agrees, and Fourth dies by breaking his own diary. Rescue operation. Now a couple, Yukiteru and Yuno plan on a trip before both disappear for several days. Yuno, in her desperation of being tagged by Akise and having her happy end ruined, decides to secretly kidnap Yukiteru and have him secluded so the two of them can be happy in the end. Yukiteru's friends Hinata, Mao, and Kosuka would be enlisted to help by Akise and Nishijima, as Yuno has him hidden in an old residential area full of hotels, some of them owned by her parents, and Yukiteru's friends would not alert her as much as the police. Yuno discovers that they are tagging her and eventually tricks Hinata into thinking Yukiteru escaped and sends a message asking for her. Hinata does arrive, but Yuno attacks her and has her tied up. She uses the same trick to lure the rest of them, using a mannequin of Yukiteru to trap them in a room and bury them in concrete, or gas in the anime. Yuno, almost naked, tries to feed a barely conscious Yukiteru while Hinata confronts her about what she's doing. Yuno believing Yukiteru is content. She is interrupted by Akise, who claims to Yuno he wants to negotiate with her and blackmails her with the corpses found at her home, planning to tell the police about them, and asks her about the third corpse's identity. Yuno is at first enraged that Akise would defile her parents' corpses, but goes silent after hearing of the third one. She then bursts in hysterical laughter, repressing her memories in a fit of despair, while madly talking to Yukiteru that they are weird people and cuts communications. Eventually, thanks to Kosuka, he is able to use the ventilation shaft and sneak into the control room where Yukiteru and Hinata are confined. Yuno, not knowing who Kosuka is, expresses shock that he has a diary. Listening to his explanation, she deduces Kosuka is not very smart and tricks him into giving her the key to the control room and later that of Yukiteru's. Throwing in the first key, Yuno uses the chance to pull out a crossbow, while Kosuka frees Mao and Akise. Yuno coldly shoots him in the leg whilst pointing out his failure. However, before she can kill him, Yukiteru is freed by Hinata. Snatching the crossbow from Yuno, Yukiteru slaps her and stops her, saving Kosuka and freeing Hinata in the process. Seeing Yukiteru leave with his friends, Yuno desperately tries to call out to him. However, an enraged Yukiteru tells her to go to hell. Sad and alone, Yuno resolves that Yukiteru is not safe without her and goes after him. The seventh's battle of love. After the breakup, Yukiteru would soon be a target of both the seventh duo Marco Ikusaba and Ai Mikami, as well as the eighth, Kamado Ueshita and her orphan army. Yukiteru would be put under protection by Akise, who uses Kosuka's house as a stronghold with a system to nullify the apprentice diaries of Kamado. Yuno, however, infiltrates the house and renders the jamming system useless in an attempt to prove herself worthy of Yukiteru again by protecting him. Yukiteru quickly deduces her intentions, and thinking her to be more of a danger than an asset, deciding to have Yuno come with him with her hands tied. With the police and Nishijima overwhelmed by the seventh, Yukiteru has to run for his life with Yuno, Hinata, and Mao. Hinata and Mao would eventually be injured by them while Yuno suggests they should let them die and run away. Yukiteru is cornered in a room. Worried about Hinata and Mao and the incoming seventh, with little choice, Yukiteru decides to free Yuno. The seventh catches up to them, and with their apprentice diaries rendered useless by Akise, who turns the jammer manually, the duo use their real diaries. Ai throws a knife which Yuno blocks, being praised by Yukiteru. She becomes so happy that she successfully parries each and every knife thrown by Ai, leaving the shocked sevenths with no choice but to retreat. Yukiteru, worried about his friends, decides to follow them, but the house is set on fire by an orphan of Kamado. Yukiteru and Yuno eventually encounter the seventh in the pair's battle under fire. Yukiteru, not knowing if he can trust Yuno, leaves her be without helping her, which causes Yuno to be defeated by Ai and Marco. Enraged by Yukiteru's behavior, Marco takes both their diaries thinking they can be useful alive while also giving them another chance. Given the terrible loss, they would be rushed to the hospital. While in the hospital, Yuno escapes her room to check on Yukiteru, who is reunited with his father, Kuro Amano, and plays sports competitions courtesy of Minene. Yuno stalks them with knife in hand as she is unaware of who Kuro is, but finds herself relieved that he is Yukiteru's father and that she does not have to resort to violence. Eventually, however, Yuno would stalk Kuro and discover his plans to destroy Yukiteru's cell phone to have his debts paid by the 11th, John Bacchus, as she overhears his conversation with him by phone. Yuno quickly warns Yukiteru about this, but he's distrustful, while Yuno attempts to kill him, but Yukiteru stops her from taking drastic actions while Yuno asks him who he trusts more. Yuno receives a call from Marco, telling her to not harm Kuro or risk her diary to be destroyed along with Yukiteru since Kuro can lead them to the 11th. They order the three of them to go to the Sakurami Tower, which they comply, Yuno using this chance to see Kuro's real intentions. Reaching the cathedral within the tower, Kuro tries to get a hold of Yukiteru's cell phone, but is beaten by Marco. Yukiteru rushes to rescue his father to no avail, and during the distraction, Kuro reaches Yukiteru's cell phone and breaks it, only to find out it is a fake. With his intentions crystal clear, Yuno rushes against Ai and slashes at her flowers, which had the true diaries hidden. Eventually, the tower is bombarded and the floor collapses with Yukiteru falling. Yuno and Kuro try to aid him, and Yukiteru prefers Yuno over his father. The two of them decide to retreat with the 7th duo following. While Yukiteru is not sure of their chances given their last battle, Yuno reprimands him that it was his fault for not trusting her that they were defeated, and tells him her plan. The 7th duo reaches Yuno, who is alone, while Yukiteru broadcasts that he will fight hidden. Marco, enraged, attacks Yuno and disarms her knife with her teeth, with Ai soon to restrain her, while Marco decides to go after Yukiteru. Ai points out that they cannot win 2 versus 1, to which Yuno agrees, revealing Yukiteru having hidden close to them instead of the broadcast room. Yukiteru throws a dart against Ai, and Marco warns her to avoid it. However, Yuno uses the chance to slice her throat, with Yukiteru disapproving of her extreme violence and that taking her diary was the best choice. The tower starts to collapse further, and they have to use parachutes. One is used by Kuro, who escapes the tower. Debris falls on them, and Yukiteru, Yuno, and Ai are trapped. Ai tells them that they have lost, since Marco is still alive and outside. Yuno agrees, but plans to use Ai as a hostage to force Marco to take them out. Yukiteru, however, believes this to be extreme. Marco does try to help, but not because of Yuno's threats, but because he loves Ai. During this time, Marco uses this chance to reprimand Yukiteru for his cowardice in letting Yuno do all the dirty work, and Yuno for being selfish and doing whatever she wants rather than cooperate with Yukiteru. Hearing this, Yukiteru decides to help Marco and asks Yuno for her help. While initially unsure, she is encouraged by Yukiteru, who wants to believe in her, and she helps. Escaping the debris, they take the remaining parachute since Marco does not want to live without Ai. Yukiteru and Yuno descend, Yukiteru wanting to make things right with his family and asking for Yuno's support, to which she agrees. After descending, the two encounter Nishijima and witness to how Yuki's mother's corpse is being taken by an ambulance. Ai and Marco die, unable to escape when the tower falls down, which means the 7th are successfully eliminated. The 11th's kingdom. While Yukiteru mourns the death of his mother, Yuno prepares him sandwiches and a message to cheer him up. The next morning, while Yukiteru follows his father in an attempt to prove he's guilty for his mother's death, Yuno is brought by Nishijima for questioning regarding the 3rd corpse in her house, but she doesn't reply and simply leaves. A brief time later, she reads her diary entry that Yukiteru is under attack by John Bacchus's men, who are disguised as security guards, and rushes to help him, all the while cursing Nishijima for his questioning and thinking she will kill him if she is late to save Yukiteru. While Yukiteru confronts Bacchus's men by himself, Yuno arrives at the shrine and kills the last guard. Yuki's father is killed by Bacchus's men. Heartbroken by the loss of his parents, Yukiteru tells Yuno that he will become God, even if it means he must kill her while pointing a knife blade towards her neck. In response, Yuno embraces Yukiteru and kisses him, claiming that she is more than willing to die for him since her death is her future. Days later, the two are missing, and during a meeting of participants, the 11th proposes that the two are to be eliminated from existence. Before Deus does so, they appear in the Cathedral of Casualty, embracing each other, while Yukiteru reveals Bacchus to be the 11th, Sakurami's city mayor, and reveals that the two were gathering information of him through the random diary, prompting Deus to remove the shaded cover on their identities. As soon as Yukiteru finishes his speech, Yuno congratulates him for looking so cool, while she changes clothes in front of him and gives him the next step of her plan in a script, as she tells him that John most likely closed Ueshita's orphanage to corner her to take possession of her blog diary and create an army of apprentice users. As Yukiteru begins to doubt if he can truly go ahead, Yuno launches herself towards Yukiteru, kindly embracing him and telling him that she won't forgive him if he isn't serious about what he said before about becoming God. The following day, Yukiteru and Yuno manage to ally themselves with Ueshita and her army of orphans. While Yukiteru explains the plan and the two sides prepare to ambush John, Yuno signals Yukiteru. Soon after, the two bands ambush John and are successful in killing most of his guards. However, John activates a jammer on his car, which renders the apprentice diaries useless. Both Yukiteru and Yuno use this chance to kill the orphans and then attack Ueshita and John. The two of them escape while Yukiteru and Yuno follow via car. Yuno shoots at the car, but the bullets miss. Yukiteru suggests John's diary must be like his own that predicts his surroundings, and Yuno attempts to gun John himself, but also misses. Dumbfounded, Yukiteru desperately rams his car, and the two parties fall without injuries. Yukiteru and Yuno corner John, but Akise arrives with the help of Minene, the distraction causing Nishijima to shoot at Yuno's gun to disarm her. Akise reveals that the Yuno here is a fake, and the third corpse found in Yuno's house is in fact the real Yuno Gasai, positively identified via DNA test with the umbilical cord left at the orphanage the real Yuno was adopted from. Yuno desperately cries and asks Yukiteru to believe her, while he briefly separates from her. Yuno desperately tries to call to him. Yukiteru soon protects Yuno from John's gun, and John soon takes his leave. Yukiteru and Yuno decide to leave while Akise tries to convince him otherwise, but Yukiteru claims Yuno is Yuno and they leave. Yukiteru and Yuno decide to remain hidden until Minene strikes at John's office. They use her as bait to successfully infiltrate while Yukiteru saves Minene, while Yuno creates a ruckus, killing many of John's men with a submachine gun and slicing the remaining ones with a katana. Yuno soon takes civilians hostage to have leverage over John. Yukiteru, at this point, instructs Yuno to rescue his friends while Minene and Yukiteru deal with John. Yuno successfully rescues Kosuka, Mao, and Hinata from death by killing John's men, while she makes her way to Ueshita to kill her. She finds her, but is being protected by Akise, who blocks her again with a tonfa. Enraged, she attacks again, but her diary predicts that Yukiteru wrote his last words, a trick used by him on purpose to force Yuno to come to his aid and change the future, and soon rushes to Yukiteru's side. While Yukiteru proves victorious over Minene by using the noise from his diary to distract her long enough to have the faster pull of the trigger, Yuno soon reaches him, discovering that with her last act, Minene attempted to destroy the vault door so that Yukiteru could kill John. Yukiteru claims Minene died for him in vain, mourning her loss, but Yuno encourages him to destroy the Holon so that Minene's death is not in vain, which he does. As soon as he walks away, Yuno uses the retinal scanner to successfully open the vault and decapitates John in the manga, or shoots him in the head in the anime. Akise sees Yuno open the vault so that he knows that this Yuno is not a fake. Yukiteru asks her how she was capable of killing John, and she replies that she ambushed him while he left the vault. Yukiteru predicts that Yuno opened the vault in the anime and does not question her. The two proceed to leave Yukiteru's house to sleep after the endeavor. Yukiteru awakens, only to see that Yuno is half naked sleeping beside him with his hand on her breast, which Yuno forced on purpose, unnoticed. Yukiteru screams in surprise while Yuno greets him, but the dumbfounded Yukiteru demands that she put on her clothes. The two decide to have breakfast as the only diary owner left besides themselves remaining is Kamado, who is under Akise's guard and is easy to reach. While the two contemplate what to do later, Yukiteru's house starts to collapse. The end begins. Following John's demise, Yuno and Yukiteru witness several voids that are destroying the world. Yuno concludes that Deus is dying, and therefore they must act fast, encouraging Yukiteru to become God so he can return the dead back to life. Yukiteru and Yuno soon go to Akise's house, where he reveals that he has been given an apprentice diary by Kamado in exchange for protecting her. Yuno asks about the 8th location, but Akise merely asks her to leave, saying that he wants to speak with Yukiteru. Enraged, she tries to stab Akise, only to find that he has a protective vest. She attempts to use a stun gun, but Akise blocks it with a rubber glove. He reveals the powers of his detective diary to both of them. It can predict the future, even if other diary holders try to change it. Realizing that this is a distraction, Yuno tells Yukiteru to follow his friends and Kamado while she handles Akise. As Yukiteru goes on the chase, Yuno battles Akise, only to be defeated and pinned to the ground. Seeing no other escape, she stabs herself, forcing Akise to heal her. He would otherwise risk making enemies with Yukiteru. Akise reluctantly does so before leaving to find Yukiteru, giving Yuno a chance to call him herself. She tells him that she was stabbed by Akise and that Yuno's diary shows his friends are betraying him, a claim his own diary seems to confirm. Yuki therefore believes that his friends are indeed betraying him. Moments later, Yuno's diary reports that Yukiteru has shot Hinata with his gun, which means Yuki believed her lie, prompting the second to laugh maniacally and declare that anybody who tries to separate Yuki from her should die. Despite her injuries, Yuno manages to track down Yukiteru, finding him being confronted by Akise over her deceptions. She tells Yukiteru not to believe a word he says, flying into a range when Akise deliberately kisses Yukiteru, challenging Yuno. Declaring that Akise will die here and now, Yuno charges to meet the observer as he uses a pipe from the rubble as a weapon. With his detective diary, Akise avoids Yuno's attacks before breaking her diary, but Yuno simply keeps going and slashes his throat, telling Yukiteru that Akise destroyed a fake diary. She brushes off his confusion by urging him to find and kill Kamado before she gets away again, and ends up stabbing the 8th to death when they find her buried under rubble. Shortly afterwards, they notice Akise staggering towards them, typing a message on his phone. Suspecting danger, Yuno decapitates Akise as he approaches Yukiteru, but the headless body keeps going. In desperation, Yuno slices Akise's phone in two, but she is too late to stop Yukiteru from reading the message on its screen. The final battle. Now the only diary owners left alive, Yuno and Yukiteru live their final days before July 28th, when the world is destined to end, as well as the date of the happy end shown in Yuno's diary. Yuno becomes upset that her advances towards Yukiteru are brushed off, such as her invitation for them to take a bath together, and Yukiteru realizes that despite her insane tendencies, Yuno really does love him. Yukiteru decides to sleep with Yuno on the 27th, changing the happy end future to a day early. Afterward, Yukiteru asks Yuno why she lied to him about the powers gained as the winner of the Survivor Games, commenting on the strange message Aru showed him before he died. Clearly upset over this, Yuno asks Yukiteru to explain what Aru's message said. Upon learning that Akise discovered that the present Yuno was in fact from another timeline, she suddenly attacks Yukiteru with an axe. Yukiteru is saved by Murumuru, now acting as god in the wake of Deus's demise. Against Yuno's wishes, she shows Yukiteru flashes of Yuno's past, confirming that she is indeed from a previous timeline where the survival game was held. In the first world, Yuno and Yukiteru were the only remaining candidates as the world teetered on the brink of collapse. Unwilling to kill each other, even to become god, they decided to commit double suicide and let the world be destroyed. However, Yuno tricked Yukiteru by hiding the pills in her mouth instead of swallowing them, believing that she could revive him with the powers of a god. After gaining Deus's powers, however, she discovered that she cannot bring back the dead to life, leaving her devastated. At the suggestion of Murumuru, Yuno uses her new powers to travel back in time to when Yukiteru was still alive, crossing the dimensional borders and creating a new timeline from scratch. Sneaking into her second self's house, Yuno butchers her counterpart with an axe. The second Yuno writes the Japanese phrase for "help me" in blood before dying. Afterwards, Yuno is given her counterpart's self in second world Yukiteru Diary by Murumuru, who is similarly imprisoned and replaced her second world self. Thus, the current events throughout the series happens in the second world, and Akise cuts up her second world self's diary. After Yukiteru has seen these events, Murumuru releases him from the vision so that he can confront Yuno. Yuno attempts to kill him, but Minene, revealed to have survived her death thanks to Deus's interference, Minene here doesn't count as an official participant, joins in to help Yukiteru. Deciding to cut her losses, Yuno once again leaps back in time with Murumuru, creating a third world with the intentions of starting her vicious cycle all over again. Yukiteru and the ninth follow, arriving 2 years earlier at the home of the third world's Yuno. After freeing her from her cage, Yukiteru and the third Yuno are carried away to the middle school by Minene, where the first world Yuno ambushes them. While Minene battles Murumuru, Yukiteru hides the third Yuno and then battles the first to seize her diary. Yuno angrily vents at her boyfriend, angered that the universe won't let them be together. She orders Murumuru to remove her bracelets, unlocking her true superhuman powers to defeat Minene. With the former ninth out of the way, Yuno captures Yukiteru and imprisons him in an illusion-based dream world so he can be happy, but he is horrified to learn that he cannot speak Yuno's name. Yuno revealed she does not exist in the illusion world. She finally admits that their relationship was a sham on both sides. Yuno was emotionally dependent on Yukiteru, and Yukiteru depended on her as a bodyguard in the survival game. But despite her words, she finds herself unable to kill Yukiteru. Explaining that the illusion world is a way for Yukiteru to move on without her, Yuno leaves him to his prison, placing Moe Wakaba as his make-believe girlfriend. After sealing Yukiteru, Yuno attempts to kill the third Yuno to take her place, but informs her younger counterpart of the nightmarish fate that awaits her. However, to Yuno's surprise, her third world self optimistically denies such a life, convinced her parents will sort things out. As a horrified Yuno realizes how twisted she has become, her counterpart asks if she loves someone, admitting that she does. Yuno tries to kill her third world self with a knife. However, Yuno's father intervenes to protect his daughter, quickly joined by Yuno's mother, and Kurusu enters, aiming his gun at Yuno. Seeing her other self's parents acting so protectively, Yuno realizes that Yukiteru deliberately changed the timeline to prevent the survival game, improving the lives of the would-be participants in the process. Finally accepting how much she loves him, she suicidally charges at the Gasai family, provoking Kurusu into firing his gun at her. However, she is saved when Yukiteru breaks out of the illusion world, accompanied by the second world's Muru, who was imprisoned by her first world self. While Muru stops Kurusu's bullet and defeats her first world counterpart, Yukiteru embraces Yuno and asks her to kill him to save the second world. However, Yuno instead stabs herself with a knife. Having come to genuinely love Yukiteru, she shares one last kiss with the distraught first, complimenting him on his improvement. "You have gotten way better at kissing," before passing away. The second world Muru promptly declares Yukiteru to be the winner of the second survival game, abruptly transporting him back to his timeline in the second world and leaving the first world's Yuno's body behind. The first world's Muru is able to salvage her former master's memories in the form of a crystal before being imprisoned by her third world counterpart. Redial. In the future diary Redial, it is shown that the third world's Yuno is a sane and sociable honors student with a better relationship with her parents. However, she has strange dreams, actually fragments of her previous self's memories, that feature an unknown person who she feels a bond with, causing her to watch the third world's Yukiteru. As she finishes watching him through a telescope, she is confronted by the third world Aru Akise and Reisuke Hojo for stalking, allegedly on a hunch pointed out by Yukiteru's girlfriend, and finds herself repeatedly intercepted while attempting to watch Yukiteru. However, the first world Muru is able to communicate with Yuno through a keychain on her phone, directing her to dodge the attack and enter the archives where she's held. Akise confesses his personal jealousy of Yuno as the object of Yukiteru's affections. The third world's incarnation of Muru attempts to stop her, but Minene is able to occupy her long enough for Yuno to reach the center of the archives. Using the sword she took from Akise as a key, she opens the sphere and meets with Muru of the first world, now bearing features similar to Yuno herself. It is revealed that Muru has been calling the third world's Yuno in an effort to implant the memories of her first world self into her body, effectively reviving the original Yuno. However, viewing Yuno's memories had given her a change of heart. Regretting her selfish actions, she warned Yuno that the memories were harsh and painful, but Yuno happily accepted them, believing that they would allow her to find the person in her dreams. With that, she took the core into herself, gaining the memories of Yuno's life in the first and second worlds. With her prior development and the memories of her happy life in the third world, she is able to avoid going insane this time. Now effectively her first world self in her third world's body, Yuno uses a mallet to shatter the boundary between the third and second worlds, reuniting with Yukiteru in the void that remained of the latter. She tells him that she would explain what happened later before they left to fulfill their promise of stargazing together. In an epilogue, it is revealed that Yukiteru and Yuno lived together through 4 more different timelines. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.